Welcome again for another ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. And we are getting ever so closer to the start of University of Hawaii football season. It is, by the time we air this, a week and a day away on August 27th, the first game in which Hawaii will take on Vanderbilt. And part of the ESPN Honolulu radio broadcast team for the pregame show along with the halftime show for our radio broadcast is joining us here today, and that's Arnold Martinez, longtime high school football coach, also coach on the collegiate level, played on the collegiate level, a teacher, educator, and just an all-around football guy. But Coach, thanks for taking the time to be a part of the Fan Friday Talk Story.
No, I appreciate it. Honored to be a guest here, and appreciate the time. Thank you.
You have this period right now, within 2 weeks of a start of a season, 2 weeks of the first game, as a coach, as a player, as of now a broadcaster. What is kind of your sensation in terms of, I know there's always excitement, there's anticipation. Is there anything else when you, as a really diehard football fan to begin with, as well as very knowledgeable about the game, coming up to a start of a season, what kind of mindset are you in? Are you giddy? Are you trying to get all your chores done because the next 4 months you're going to do absolutely nothing on the weekends? How are you?
Yeah, absolutely excited about it. I think it's the greatest time of the year. I used to, talk to my coaching staff and the guys from, I don't know, way back when. And when this time comes around, particularly in the mainland, the smell of football comes in, the air gets cooler, the seasons are going to change a little bit. And then, the grass, the smell of the grass and the cleats and sound of the cleats. And that time's coming. After doing it a certain amount of years, you get programmed, right? How cologne works, right? And perfume, it brings back nostalgia. And there's certain smells around football, and some aren't that good, when you get in the locker room. But you can smell it in the air, and I just tell the guys, hey, you smell that? And they're like, what's that, coach? Football's coming. And they're like, okay. And I said, yeah, it's going to be here any second. It's the greatest season in time, sports season in the world. I'm biased, I guess. I mean, I don't feel this way about many other sports. So yeah, definitely get excited.
You mentioned, of course, on the mainland, sometimes that smell and the weather you're originally from the mainland. Where are you originally? What's your hometown?
Yeah, Northern California. So I grew up in the Bay Area. Spent some time in Oakland as a young man, and then finished up in a town called Vallejo, California, which is, if you're on Highway 80, it's if there's no traffic, it's like less than half an hour to San Francisco. And then, Oakland's right across the bay. And then I went to Cal, so I'm a Bay Area guy. And yeah, that's Northern Cali is home. But actually, home is here really now, right? But that's the roots. We've been here going on 19 years, it might be. So yeah, came here a long time ago and settled in. My wife's born and raised here. So and my children are, born and raised here. Actually, my daughter was actually born there, and then we moved in when she was a year and a half. Yeah. I was a head coach at a junior college, and then we decided to make the leap of faith to Hawaii and be closer to my wife's family, and it's been a blessing ever since. I mean, just the aloha spirit here, the people here, just everything. It's just been a blessing. So.
You said you played at Cal, so who was coaching there?
Well, it's funny is I transferred into Cal, and then I was running around, tore my knee twice, so I didn't get on the field at Cal. But the coach at the time that I was doing that was Gilbertson. Keith Gilbertson. He had just come from UW. Before that was Bruce Snyder, so I'm taking way back now. I don't know if people can remember that far back. And then after Gilby was, might have been Mariucci, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had already graduated by that time and started my coaching journey and at a local JC nearby in the Bay as well. And then got a chance to get back there when Tom Homo was the coach, and that was to GA. At my alma mater. So that was fantastic, just learning more and more. And then And then when I was done there, I got my first head coaching job at age of 30 at another local junior college. Yeah.
You know, you've had, obviously, you're just going to mention a few of the stops you've had on your coach's journey. And every coach has different journeys, but you get that first start either collegiately as the graduate assistant, and at some point, or maybe you might connect with in the high school level and then matriculate to the college level. You've also been a coach at Army, right? As well as head coaching in high school level. You coach at the JC level. And so it's always a transition, right? No matter what the different levels. And you've been a head coach at different levels. Like, I'm sure a lot of soon to be, or I'm about to be a head coach at whatever level may come to you and say, you know what, what's a pointer? What's kind of the element for a first-time head coach at any level that maybe you'd want to give as a tip?
All along that journey, I think I have a total of close to 28 years. Maybe if not, I've probably lost a couple somewhere in there. Also got a chance to intern at the NFL level on the Bill Walsh coaching internship. That's how they get the younger guys in or guys in the door. So that was amazing. Did some work with the Atlanta Falcons. And but even then, my friend got the head job. And a couple of things of advice is, number one, you're not going to please everybody. And, you know, I think you go into it with the right heart that you're going to make decisions that are going to be for the betterment of the entire program. And right, all tides rise together. You want everyone to you know, row the boat in the same direction, and you got to make some hard decisions. That's the other thing. Be ready to make hard decisions, because you know, not every decision is going to be warm fuzzies and joy and joyful for everybody involved. You know, because the sport challenges you. You know, the game of football, like it's been said, many people have heard this, it reveals your character. It can build character. I think it does have some qualities in there where it builds character, but it also reveals character. And it reveals, you know, what you're made of if you have grit and perseverance, and if you have your heart in the right place. And if you care about your players and you care about the program and you want to leave it better than you did before you picked it up, before you started there, then you're not going to please everybody, and you got to be ready to make hard decisions. And I think the other one is understanding that when you put the head coach's hat on, it's a unique position in that you're used to being a position coach, and you're used to really connecting with a smaller group that you can you know, really bond with, and your piece of the puzzle is maybe this big, and everybody has this piece of the puzzle. But then when you flip that hat on, you own the whole puzzle. You know, if it's a 3,000 piece puzzle, it's not one section of it that's yours of you know, 500 pieces. Now you own that whole thing, and not own it, but you know, you're responsible for it, and you're invested in every aspect of it, from the equipment room to the staff to, you know, for me, I invested even in the custodial staff. You know, I love them because, and I made our players understand and appreciate them every day, you know, because it's not about one person, and it's not about the head coach. It's about everybody working together to put that puzzle piece and make everything, all the gears sync up and work the right way. And so you're not going to please everybody, and you got to be ready to make some hard decisions, and you got to understand the scope and magnitude of putting the coach's hat on. It doesn't grow just a little bit. When you put that coach's hat on, your responsibility and your obligation grows exponentially. So I'd say be ready for all of that. Yeah.
And I think, like, there could be other head coaching positions that may have this complexity as well. But a football coach, whether you're at high school, a junior college, and definitely at college, football is the biggest thing, the biggest sport in terms of number of people involved with it. In many cases, that is the premier face of the university, like University of Hawaii. Football is it. Every college, football is the biggest revenue generator. So suddenly when you say about, your responsibility grows exponentially. It's not just the football program that just grew. It is everything connected. You suddenly have to engage with the community a whole ton more, the media a whole ton more. If you're the head coach of St. Louis High School's Ron Lee, you're that coaching job, whoever is on the news, right? So it ain't going to be the baseball coach, but the football coach is on the news, and suddenly people know who you are. You're going to get stopped at the supermarket maybe. And some people just don't embrace that. And I'm sure you've heard and seen where those that cannot, at least in some relative short period of time, embrace that, they're not going to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a certain personality to be a head coach. You know, I think everybody says they want to be one, and then they realize that it's not that fun sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And it's a wake-up call in a hurry. And you have to have a personality. I believe that you have to be a people person. You got to be a great communicator. You got to be genuine. And even then, if your heart is in the right place all the time, you still will be questioned. You still will be challenged because there's all kinds of people in the world, all kinds of personalities, right? And then, yeah, to take on the head coaching position, you are an extension of that program to in all other areas, and the reach that it has is vast. You know, I had a friend of mine who was a principal for many years. He played also in college, and then he became a principal. And he said, you know, if you're in high school, if your football team is a positive influence on campus, regardless of wins and losses, winning is obviously helpful. Mm-hmm. But if the boys and the program is a great positive energy source on campus, he says, if the football program is going, the school is going. Because there's indirect influence, because those guys are now in the classroom, and how they carry themselves, how they treat their teachers, how they treat their peers. And, you know, so it is. And then the other part you just said, when you become it's funny because many people say, you know, you ask any Division I coach who's never been a high school coach, they will tell you their respect for a high school coach is phenomenal, because when you become the high school head coach, you better know how to screw on all the face masks, you know, put the chin strap buckles on. You know, those guys, you know, when they're at that level and they've never been down at the other level, there's a greater appreciation for that. I had another older coach tell me when I was at Cal, he said, you know, every coach should have to coach in poverty. You know, he mentioned that to me. He said, you know, every coach, whether they're in college or whatever, should have to train at least a season or two either in a community in poverty or just a program that doesn't have a lot of resources, because it's going to make them better as a man, as a person, as a coach, because they're going to have to be very creative. They're going to have to work their tail off just to stay even with the other teams if you don't have those resources. So it teaches you a lot. You know, it teaches a lot of grit, a lot of perseverance. And but yeah, it's not for everybody. I always would laugh when you interview guys and they think coaching is putting on a hat and a shirt on Friday night and yelling at some kids. And that's the furthest thing from it, whether Friday or Saturday night, whether it's college, that's the furthest thing from it. It's Monday through Friday, getting up at 5 a.m., taking care of your responsibilities, your family, and everything else. Then, did you get your film breakdown done? Did you get your meeting stuff, you know, material ready for when you're going to meet with the players? All your grade out? Did you know, everyone says they want to coach until it comes down to actually coaching. Football is a different beast. It's tough.
Then you see the work. The work. Now, one of the great things about for you, right, is you've coached, and all that knowledge of playing and coaching. Now you have this opportunity, and you have been doing it with radio as an analyst, as well as on television with OC Spectrum, OC 16, and you're going to be part of the ESPN Honolulu radio crew for the pregame and the halftime show. Do you have as much fun in terms of being able to kind of break things down and analyze and be able to communicate that? The challenge is always, how do you communicate some of that stuff into a little bit into a language that, you know, the lay fan can understand. How have you been able to adapt that?
Yeah, I think, you have to make some of that, all the technical jargon and schematical, the nomenclature, right, so to speak. Even that word is probably too much, but you have to get it to a digestible form, right? That's more palatable for everybody. But I think a lot of that is also my teaching background, going training, getting my, credentials and license and certifications. I did a bunch of them. And then also being in the classroom as a teacher helps me because, as a teacher, you have to differentiate and you have to be able to speak to all different levels to get them to understand the concepts at all those different levels. Now, it's funny, a lot of my coaching buddies who have gone to educational certification programs, gotten their degrees in pedagogy, say the same thing. They say, I'm a better coach from my teacher training, the way I can deliver, because it's not a cookie cutter thing when you're teaching football either. It's not one size fits all for your players. You have to know how to access the player's potential through their weaknesses and their strengths. And you can teach a drill a certain way, but you got to be able to modify that drill so that you meet every player where they are, whether it's physical skill or learning style, their multiple intelligence, the way they learn. And so educators, I think, really have a kind of a upper hand in that sense because they've been trained on that, the psychology of learning and the psychology of teaching. But yeah, so get to your point, I do have fun. I wish, I've actually been asking some of the guys, can I get back on the television a little bit here and there? Because I think, I had a lot of fun doing that with Felipe and the guys, and I do a lot more radio now, and then the podcast. And if you listen to the podcast, it's really an educational podcast. I wanted it to be, that as we designed it and we came up with the brainstorming. I said, well, I want to ask coaches questions so that a person can listen and learn more about football. If they listen to an episode, they learn more about football than they did before they listened to it, and that's the goal. And then when I'm on the radio trying to break it down, if I say something technical, then I'll go ahead and reverse it and say, okay, and what that means is this guy is going to be here in this position with this angle, with this, we hear leverage. You guys hear so many, it's funny, you hear so many terms, right, on when you listen to and you watch the games. Mm-hmm. And my wife will ask me, what does that mean? And I'll tell her, but it's a whole nother language. You need Google Translate to figure some of that stuff out. You know what I mean? I don't think they have football to English yet, but maybe I ought to get a job at Google and help them out. But tell everybody what a 5 technique is, and 2-man over the top, quarters coverage, and you say all these things, but then I realize in my mind that not everybody's understanding maybe what that is. So then I'll say what that means is they're going to play zone 4 cross. They're going to take 25% of the field, each one of them. So we call it quarters, something like that. So I'll try to, but I do have fun. I'm an educator at heart, and I have fun teaching the game. I don't know everything. Gosh, I feel like I'm shocked at some things I remember. Like, gosh, that one was in there for 30 years. I remember I got that one in 1980 something. And then, but coaches are sponges, and we're constantly trying to learn and get better. I don't have all the answers. I mean, there's always a better way. And I think if you're trying to learn, like I'm constantly reading up on new articles, some of the new language that they use, the new terminology, the way they phrase things, the way they teach things. There's a whole psychology to coaching, even at the pro level. And I got to observe and be in camp at the Seahawks 2 times in training camp, and then the internship once hired officially with the Falcons. And just I love seeing the progression and the evolution of the game from the 80s when I started in it, early 80s to now. And then the way it's even presented. I mean, it is very, I always just joke around and tell guys, this is not rocket surgery. You know what I mean? Rocket science and brain surgery. But in essence, it kind of is. There's some ways, it's the ultimate chess game. And there's guys with that. You never see the movie The Beautiful Mind, Russell Crowe?
No, I didn't.
He was the savant as a mathematician, and he could
Okay.
just see equations. And I used to ask guys. I even asked Dan Quinn. He's the coordinator of Dallas Cowboys now, a good friend of mine. And I said he was. We were at the Seahawks at the time. Then he became the head coach at Atlanta. But I asked him. I said, "Do you ever feel like you could come up with something that's revolutionary in the game? Like who's the first guy that actually ran a zone coverage on defense? You know that actually happened at one point. Who
Mhm.
actually was the guy that said we can throw a forward pass because it was just all run back in the old black and white days, right? Student by the left, student by the right. But somebody said we can open. So there are moments in the game like RPO changed the game, zone read changed the game. And coaches are like masterminds, and they're like that beautiful mind trying to find that next revolutionary idea that can give them an advantage to win, because that's really what it becomes, right? We got to get an advantage to win, and it's a chess game. So
And I allude to the fact your podcast tips and overthrows. So I
you
know
know,
you've had some great guests. And I know recently, is it your most recent ones? What it was Chad Monken, the head coach at Army?
no, actually, the most recent one was Timmy Chang.
Oh,
Timmy was on. I
I guess
had
I mean you might as well throw him in there someplace. I guess.
no, I had Jeff on before that, head coach of Army, who I'm just so blessed and appreciative of. Right, he allowed me to be on staff that year and even possibly continue. But we decided the family stayed here, and then
Mm.
I was. And I missed them a lot, and they missed me. But my wife said, go again, leave us. She didn't miss me that much. But I said, no, I'm going to I want to be here for my daughter's senior year at the time.
Mm.
And then my son started high school, and I said, well, I'm going to be a dad. I coached a lot of kids through their years. I missed some of my kids' years. Let me
Mm.
just be a dad and watch him play. So that's been great. It's been, he's playing at Yolani, and it's been fun just being a dad. But yeah, Jeff, I'm very blessed that we have that relationship. We've had a number of guys on there. Jacob Euro also. So all the UH fans, if you want to see, and I ask questions more, I'm not going to just ask about football. So if people want to listen, you can learn about these guys and where their heart is too, their
Mm.
journey, and then how they shape their philosophy. I think that's important to know, because people just say, oh, the coach sucks. Oh, that, every coach sucks, but if you really don't get to know the coach, it's, maybe that's a little harsh, right? I mean, I think if you understand what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish, how they're trying to do it, what their philosophy is, that's where I dig in. I take a dive into that, really ask those questions. But yeah, I had a lot of different guys. Had NFL coordinators, defense coordinators, Gus Bradley, Dan Quinn, the Cowboys had Dabo Sweeney, head coach of Clemson, been on.
Oh, wow.
Tosh Lupoy, who is now the D coordinator at the Oregon Ducks. NFL coaches, college coaches, and some high school coaches. We've had Ron Lee on there. We've had Leonard Lau. And
I ran into you this past Saturday because we're over at the University of Hawaii. They had kind of a scrimmage, a controlled scrimmage there. And you mentioned that your son, Tristan, playing for Iolani. I can't imagine the type of pride you must feel because you are a football coach. Has been your life for such a long time. But to see your son being successful in that sport, to see any of your kids be successful in anything is always great, right, as a parent. But to see your son in the sport that you love, that inside and out with, and he's learning from you, you're helping him, and to see that development, I can't imagine the type of pride you must feel in that space.
yeah, indescribable. A total blessing from God above, because, that young man and my daughter, as a father for, my daughter and my son, I just feel like I'm honored and blessed to be their dad because of how hard and how they work and how they approach their goals in life and their ambition. And to see him, and my daughter did also soccer from the time she was 5, and I trained her, right, and him together when they were little. All of our change of direction, agility, I taught them kinesthetic movement, and from the time they were little, I said, listen, I'm going to give you something because it's all I got to give you. Football saved my life, growing up the way I grew up in poverty, so I was on welfare and, around some different things without sports in general and without football. So that's why I knew I was going to give it back. and then if I can try to inspire some guys to use their talents athletically to achieve their goals and chase their dreams, then I wanted to do that. That was kind of my deal. And now my dream is just to see my kids have no, regardless, they're going to make mistakes, right? All of the kids, as parents, we got to be able to sit back and let them learn sometimes and not intervene. But just to see them have a good life and use the tools you give them, is my daughter's actually working. Use the tools use the tools we give them to be successful and at least work at it. And wherever they land, because we're always going to be proud of our children, wherever, whatever level and where they're at. We're going to love them unconditionally. That's how I feel. I tell them, look, whatever your dream is, be passionate about it, love it, and go chase it. If that's one thing that you can learn from dad, just learn that, that there's something in your heart, make it work for you. And I'll be here for you. Right. So my daughter now she's, as a freshman, she got a job working at, she interviewed with the University of Washington football program, and she's been in football operations. She's going into her senior year now. And so she knows the game. They just asked her to actually be an analyst to help break down and everything. But she said, Dad, I don't know with the time, because she's actually interning with AWS too. Her major is informatic technology and informatics and data, cloud management, stuff like that. She's 10 million times smarter than me. And then got that from mom, definitely got that from mom. And, so she said, I don't know if I have enough time to do the analyst, because then you got to be in there like she said, like you, Dad, 16 hours a day. I said, yeah, you got to be there, and you got to break down all the cut-ups and do all the data. But they like her because that's what she does, data. Mm-hmm. But she's in operations. She handles everything. She works with recruiting, hosting, media, social media, all that stuff. So she loves the game. She tells me she'll be sitting next to the guys evaluating the film and just say, Dad, I don't know if this kid can play. And I'm like, you could be crushing somebody's dreams. Leave that up to coach sitting next to you. She's she's like the girl in Remember the Titans. So, and then my son, he's been running around. Both of them were on the field with me since, Moana Lua days, and they were little, all the games. And then my son was holding my clipboard. Then he was holding the iPad when we were getting live, video in between plays and series. He was my guy flagging the plays for me. And then we'd go train, and then he'd play his youth flag and then his Pop Warner. And now to see him as a senior growing a beard, I guess that came from Dad. And
he's got a nice beard. He's got a nice full form beard. I couldn't do that at 17 years old. Yeah,
the genes kicked in. I tell you, it wasn't like that like a year ago. It just went like that. So it's but it is. It's very very proud of him. I just love him to death. Love my daughter to death, and my whole family. I just feel like I'm one of the most blessed people in the world to be their dad. Like they've given me more than I think I've given them. I learn from them. I learn from their heart. They teach me. Even my son now, because I take him to train all over the different places with different coaches too. And we'll go to the mainland. He works with some guys. He actually got to work since after sophomore year. He got to train with some NFL guys. And then, wow. And he'll tell me so I'll ask, hey, I noticed on this release, it's a little different than when we used to teach it. What are they saying to you? And then he'll tell me about it, and then we'll watch it on film. And I'll say, man, that makes big time sense. The game has evolved. So he actually helps me keep current on some of those nuances because that's the game, right? The foundation and the core principles pretty much stay the same. It's the minutia, the small nuances here and there that can give you an advantage. And guys are really thinking this thing through now, like all these young guys, McVay's, right? The Matt LaFleur. It's funny. My son said, Coach LaFleur? We were watching one of the preseason games. And I said, actually, I do. He was the assistant quarterback coach while I was at the Falcons. And we walked to practice every morning together from our apartment across the two fields to the facility. Wow. And here he is. He's the head coach. Yeah. And he was just a young assistant quarterback coach at the time. Then he became a coordinator of the Titans or something. And now, so you see, these younger minds they're the new generation. Mm-hmm. And the game has evolved. And I think we all have to do our part to if for me, if I want to keep teaching the game, I want to stay current and know what's new, the new trends and
Right.
the new things. So
Right.
yeah, but I'm proud of my son. He helps me learn, and thank you for asking about him. He's at Iolani, and they won the state championship last year. So thank you, Jesus, for that. And we'll see how they do this year. Every year is a grind. I tell them, hey, nothing's guaranteed. You got to go out and work. And he's a coach's son, so he knows what needs to be invested.
Yeah.
And and I don't have to chase after him. So that's a blessing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Well, hey, we're excited, obviously, for another University of Hawaii football season. Glad you and Josh Pacheco will be leading things off for our broadcast with the pregame show, then coming back at halftime to analyze the first half. Excited for the season. Excited for you. Continued success on the podcast as well as with your son's season and your daughter analyzing and determining who plays and who doesn't over at University of Washington.
You stay out of that. You got to stay out of that. Yeah.
Appreciate you taking the time, Coach, and continued success.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. Aloha.
All right.
Oh, brotherhood.